Kenny.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
How you doing, bud? How's it going? How you doing? Me again?
Yeah. How's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. What's up, brother? How you doing? How you doing?
Yeah, so Brian from the temporary workshop. That one, since it's been about 3 years since I've been to it, so.
Okay.
I'm just telling you or you.
Yeah, we can talk about that. We've got a mechanism in place where we can, Renee can approve expense reimbursement, and then we can get you registered for it.
Okay.
And take care of as much as we can.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Sure, no problem.
I'd like to go to the pension conference coming up in October.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna try and go too, so.
Okay.
We have a quorum. Should we go ahead and call the meeting to order? We'll go ahead and call the firefighter pension meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the citizens' open forum. Seeing no one. We'll go to the first agenda item, approval of the minutes from June 20th. Do you have any questions or comments on those? Or- We need a motion to approve first.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next item is the quarterly plan investment report.
You were not able to get anything up, correct?
We got it.
Yeah. we
Oh,
have-
I guess I could have looked up, huh? Yeah. All right, feel free to start laughing now, I may. Okay, so the information we'll go over will be for your June 30th quarter. I know we're actually creeping up just a few days away from September 30th, so I'll bring you up to date as best I can as to where we kind of stand today. But the first thing we'll do is we'll look at the actual numbers, as you can see up on the board. Your beginning balance for the quarter was just over 6.5 million. 60,000 come in contributions. Saw 273,000 in earnings gains. Paid out 13,600 in distributions, 20,000 in expenses. Your ending balance was $6,843,900. So we did increase the fund by a few hundred, about close to 300,000 for the quarter. As far as the performance on page, I believe it was 19, I think we said, of the packet. We had another really good quarter. Saw a lot of gains in the market. I will say on an absolute basis, of course, but also on a relative basis. Our managers have performed very well this whole year so far. Again, not only in absolute returns, but just kind of in a relative sense as well. And I'll kind of talk about that some. For the quarter, up 4.16%, which gets us to 4.74% for the fiscal year. If you remember, we actually started in a hole of over 8% down to start the fiscal year. So our December 31st quarter, we were down over 8%. So to be up almost 5%, 2 quarters later, we are pretty happy. The market's done a really nice bounce back. I will say this: there's not a lot of new news as far as what news is driving the market. So I hate to kind of sound like a broken record, but a lot of the things we've been talking about this whole year continue to hold true. U.S. China, U.S. China, U.S. China, that continues to drive the market. I saw something before the market opened this morning. Oh, market's set to jump positive because of U.S.-China trade talks seeming to look really positive, and that's where we've seen the gains, especially in September. I will tell you, July, not to jump too far ahead, July was not bad. We added a little bit. August was not good at all. September, we bounced back. Most of that, again, related to what's the latest tweet related to U.S. and China. We actually have now, I've been in and out of some meetings, so I've only caught the headlines. I don't have all the details, but I think the market has actually taken a little bit of a hit today, not due to China, but it sounds like there's some heavier impeachment talk. So I'm sure if things go that way, I imagine the market's probably in the interim of while that's going on, because it doesn't like the unknown. So how will that play out? That could create a little bit of havoc while that process goes, if it does come. But outside of that, again, we go back to kind of U.S. and China and what's the trade talks, and how does that play out. The second driver this year, not near as powerful, but the second thing, again, continues to be what the Fed does with interest rates. They've stayed low, extremely low. I will say that it's kind of interesting too. When we talked to our fixed income managers recently about this, and they're really thrilled. But if you look at your two fixed income portfolios, your broad market, which is kind of your high quality fund, up almost 7% this year, and then your core plus up 5.69%. You would not expect to see those types of returns in fixed income in a low interest rate environment like we're in. So our managers are saying, it's been a great year, but they'll be the first to caution you that this is not the new thing where, fixed income's finally bounced back, because it hasn't really done a whole lot for a number of years. Its equities has been making up all the return. So while we've seen those good returns, they'll tell you that as long as the interest rates stay this way they are, don't necessarily expect to continue to see these really good returns in fixed income. It's probably still, the weight is still going to be on equity shoulders to probably get most of the return. But again, it's just kind of an interesting thing, but they would chalk it up to an anomaly this particular year. U.S. large cap performed very well, up 5.32 for the quarter, up 3.67 for the year. Finally just got back into the positives for the year this quarter, because even with the big bounce back in March, the equities were actually still down on the year because of the hole we had from December. So good bounce back. Your small mid cap, that is the manager that always has just been a rock star in this portfolio, and they continue to do it again. Up 8.82% for the quarter, and then the fiscal year just number blows my mind, up almost 5.5% when their benchmarks are down 2.8%. So just incredible. But that's kind of what they've always done. You look back in any time period, and they've always outperformed their benchmarks and their peer groups by a considerable amount. International portfolio, next, thank you. Really pleased here too. For those of you that maybe been on the board for a while, the international fund was kind of the problem child of this total portfolio for a number of years. We've made manager change in October of 14, so we're coming up right on the 5-year mark now. And you look back, and the 5-year number now looks pretty good. Looking at that at 2.99% versus 2.65 on the benchmark. You go out to the 10-year, and you kind of see that still shows the trouble that we had there. But the two managers that we have in place now have done a really good job. So we're very happy that we've been able to kind of turn around that international portfolio. And then the real estate, we added that June of last year. So this is your first full calendar year of returns for your real estate portfolio. So I'll just kind of take a look at that 1-year number, even though that goes back into the prior fiscal year a little bit, but just good to see at least a full year now. Also performing well, up over 7% for the year, and again ahead of the benchmarks. And I will tell you that not only are almost, except for fixed income, we're ahead in all of our managers are outperforming the benchmarks, but more importantly, what we look at is how are they also doing against other managers? Because benchmark at the end of the day is it's something you use to measure against, but it's not a real thing. It's not like you go buy a benchmark. So we're looking at that, but how do we stack up against other investors? And your portfolio is actually, let me find it and I can tell you. On page 13, you can see where you stack up. For this fiscal year in the top 6%, and these are public pension funds around the country. And going back, you can see even in every time period, performing very well. So the first line, kind of the bluish gray, being what your portfolio has done. The benchmark being the middle, the dark blue, but then the peer groups being the green. And you can see that in every time period, well outperforming other managers. So have to give kudos to the managers we have in place and the job they've been doing, not only this year, but really over a number of years now. So we're very excited at the moment. Even though there's a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty, the managers are doing what we expect. Coming back to the question that you all probably want to know, where are we going to stack up, versus the assumption rate for the year? We're sitting at 4.74 as of the June quarter. As I mentioned, we saw a slight increase in July, maybe got us up over 5%, maybe up to 6. I don't know exactly what it was because we don't get the full in-depth report each month. We just get a quick overview. August, we probably pulled back quite a bit. And then September so far has been pretty positive. So I'm estimating we're going to see, barring what happens, what tweets come out over the next 5 days, we should see some positive gains for the quarter, but probably not on the level that's going to get you to 7% or above for this year. The good news is, your actuary is using a smoothing technique. So even though if we fall a little short this year, let's say maybe we finish at 5% or 5.5 or 6 even, or whatever the case may be, that's where average. I can't remember if he's using 4 or 5 year smoothing on your alls, but oh, sorry, Pedro.
No. I was just trying to think. I don't recall either.
Oh, okay. So, that's anytime you come up a little short, that's being averaged out over a number of years. But in this case, anything positive all is actually going to be a boon because actually depends on how many years he uses on smoothing. Because 15 could fall off. So if you're on the 4-year, 15 was basically a 0 year. So depending on how many years you use it on smoothing, you may actually, even without getting the assumption rate, you may actually see a positive gain this year. So that kind of comes down to which number of years he uses on that. But either way, it's not going to be you shouldn't see a significant change next year due to investment gains or losses from this year as we sit. Any questions, anything you want me to go farther on or talk about?
No questions? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the presentation of the administrative budget report.
Okay, this report is presented as a courtesy. It's not required, but it just kind of shows where we are year-to-date for the administrative expenses of the fund. Basically, everything's happened as we had expected. Everything that we approved at the last pension board meeting is reflected in this statement, including the fiduciary insurance, the audit fees for 9/30/18, and there's also a letter of no impact that was included in there for $375 for actuarial fees. So basically, everything's on track for 9/30/19. And if you have any questions?
Thank you. And then along with that, there was a worksheet. Oh, that goes with it.
Renee.
Oh, sorry.
I was trying to remember, did we approve the budget for 1920 in the last meeting? If not, we probably do need one for.
No, but that's on the.
That's on as the next item.
That's on the agenda.
Oh, did I jump ahead? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's
Okay,
okay.
that's what I wanted to make sure we covered. Okay, sorry.
And there it is.
Okay, so yeah, the budget for fiscal year 1920,
Oh, yeah, I jumped.
proposed budget. And do we have any changes in those numbers, or are they?
The only change, we increased the accounting fees. We rounded it up to 7,000 because the GASB 67, 68 requirements for the firefighters, for the plan financials have increased the audit fees a bit, and that's been over the past couple of years.
Okay.
The next, we do have as an item on the agenda following, I think it's number 7 or 8, that'll be the audit for 9/30/19. But even if we pick the higher level, this will cover it.
Okay.
So we included enough to cover the highest level of audit,
Okay.
those standalone financials. So
So-
basically, everything, that's the only thing that's changed.
Okay. So we just need a motion to approve the budget as presented for fiscal year.
Sorry. It's up to the board. Maybe a recommendation on the administrator, because the administrator obviously is us, but that also includes your consultant and your investment manager fees. As your fund grows, those are based on percentages of assets. So that fee, it should continue to grow as your fund grows. So you may, kind of year over year, that might be something you want to continually bump.
Keep an eye on.
You know, because if you're paying whatever that total cost would be, if it was actually 17, and I didn't see your other one, if it was actually 17,000 this year, it should, you know, if the market goes up at all next year, it's going to go up with it incrementally. So you might, you know, I always recommend usually always having that piece of the budget to kind of go up a little bit each year to account. I mean, you figure if the market goes up 7%, those fees are going to go up roughly 7%. But that's food for thought.
Well, yeah, just a note, 17, 18, our actuals were 13,000. Current year to date is 10.
Okay.
So I think we're good this
So
year.
there's
but
enough.
it's a
Yeah,
good,
perfect. Okay.
yeah, something we'll keep an eye on.
Yeah, we'll make a note for next year.
Yeah.
Just to take a look at that.
Okay. Just need a motion to approve the budget as proposed.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as proposed.
I second it.
Okay, any discussions or questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item is presenting the receipt of the premium tax payment.
Okay, we received a premium tax payment on schedule in middle August. It was for $66,851.93. This brings our total for the fiscal year up to $69,604.63. And this amount will offset the city's minimum required contribution, so that goes into a pot with the city's contributions to make up our minimum required contribution rate. And let's see, there's also a significant variation letter that's attached, and that basically says that the supplemental distribution, which we usually receive 1st of October, will likely be the same or lower than what we received last year. So it's probably going to be less than $2,700. And that'll be posted for the new fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I was trying to find that number for certain, but they don't have it posted yet.
Okay.
So I don't know if Pedro
no,
has
I
any-
was gonna say that I don't think they haven't posted the supplemental yet.
Okay.
That's a big difference from.
Yeah,
past.
as for perspective, we had, in 2014, we received a total of 117,000 for the premium tax money, and then this year it's 69,000. So,
Okay, thank you. Next item is presenting the letter of no impact for the firefighter cancer presumption bill.
this is something that we had talked about briefly at some of the other meetings, and this is just a letter that the actuary has provided indicating that they do not feel that the new legislation will have an impact on our contribution rate
That's good.
for the new year coming up. If you have any questions about that?
Questions?
This is odd. So some other actuarial firms are presenting a minor impact. So, but that's good.
I could say he has for some other plans, and I unfortunately, I don't know exactly what went into, because sometimes he has proposed, like you mentioned, a slight increase. This one with no impact. There may be some variations in your plan that led him to that. So I do know had different types of letters depending on the plan, so.
It could just be dependent on the health of the plan.
Honestly, I'm not, unfortunately, beyond just letting you know that sometimes there has been and sometimes there hasn't, confirming what Pedro said with Chuck and Southern Actuarial, as to the actual reasons, I'm not 100% sure.
I'll follow up with them and see if they can give us any more information about how he came to this assumption.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know, obviously it's his opinion and that's what we're gonna go by. It was just, maybe just for conversation, I don't think, you know, we need to question his opinion. It was just more out of curiosity, if anything else, maybe.
Okay.
That's good. Next item is approving the fee proposal and order of the actuarial evaluation report for 10/1 of 19.
Okay, so basically we have a proposal to complete the actuarial evaluation for 9/30/19, the upcoming end of the fiscal year, for $4,200. Last year, or sorry, it was, yeah, last year it was about the same, so there really hasn't been any change in that. It would be prepared by the League of Cities actuary, Chuck Carr from Southern Actuarial Services. And we have just about everything ready to send in to them. We're waiting for this last payroll to update, and then we'll be sending the file to the League of Cities to get, and hopefully this form, so we can get it in line for the annual report. We usually receive the annual evaluation report back in February or March.
Right.
We include that in the agenda and post it on the website.
What's the additional charge for the GASB reports? Did we do a valuation report last year?
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay, then
Every year.
It's included.
never mind. I thought we had skipped last year. Okay,
I think it's the audit.
right.
Okay, any
Okay.
questions?
So it would just be a motion to approve the actual evaluation report with a fee of $4,700, $4,200.
4,200.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
Any discussion?
Buddy.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Do you need my signature on that today?
Pardon?
Did you want my signature on that today? Do you? The signature on the,
Yeah, Amy has them.
okay, the next item is selecting the audit engagement option for fiscal year in 9/30/19.
Okay, moving right along. We've presented two options for the annual audit for the firefighters' pension. The first option includes a report that's included in the city's CAFRA. The fee for that would be $4,350. And the second option is a standalone report for $6,300. Historically, we've done a standalone report every other year. So according to that schedule, this would be the year we would do the standalone report. So if the board, it's the board's options to do that. So if the board wishes to proceed with that, then we will sign and then submit the appropriate letter to the audit firm and get on the schedule.
My thought is we stick with how we've been proceeding and do the full report this year. Any discussion?
Okay, so
Need a motion to approve the standalone report?
I'll make a motion. And I'll second it.
Is that the not to exceed 6,300?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any discussion? What's the benefit of doing it that way?
The standalone?
So it's just a more thorough audit. Really, when our report, or when they audit our plan in conjunction with the cities, there is not as much, I guess, stress testing, maybe the best way to put it. So this is just a more thorough report, singularly focused on our pension fund. So I think that's why the board just elects to do it every other year.
Any other questions or discussions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next item is presenting the approved Vision of Retirement Annual Report for fiscal year end 9/30/18.
Okay, the report is, the final report is attached for 9/30/18. It was approved by the state. We have, we used to get a letter of approval, now we just have an email, so sign of the times, I suppose. So that was approved by the state officially on July 22nd, 2019. And this is included for informational purposes for the board,
So
just
we
so they
don't
know
need
that
to-
it's been completed and approved.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that one? Okay, thank you. Next item is attorney update.
Okay, just a couple things to go over with you. I think I heard you guys talking about it earlier, but there are some educational opportunities coming up if the trustees are so inclined. The Division of Retirement has its school. This is, as you guys know, the state agency that's charged with administering municipal pension funds here in Florida. They put on a school twice a year for pension trustees. This, in the fall, it's in Orlando, so it's not too far. The dates are the 29th of October through the 31st. The first day is usually geared towards new trustees. And then the second day is a full day. It usually wraps up around 4 or 5 o'clock maybe. And the third day, it'll usually end up around lunchtime, 12, 1 o'clock. So there is no registration fee for this school. So if anybody's interested in going, they do like for you to just kind of RSVP and let them know you're coming because they order food and things like that. Although it's not required. So if you wake up and you have some free time, you can just drive over to Orlando. But again, if anybody's interested in going, I think it's a great opportunity. It's not too far. Reasonable travel expenses are something that's covered by the plan, so I would certainly encourage you to go if you can. And then the FPPTA has their school coming up at the beginning of October, so it's next week, I think. It's the 6th through the 9th, October 6th through the 9th, and that is over in Ponte Vedra, so Jacksonville, essentially. Pretty close. So if anybody's interested in going to that, the 6th is a Sunday. It's they just have kind of a welcome reception, I think. So the actual classes or the courses start on Monday, which is the 7th, and it's kind of the same deal. It's 2 full days and then a half day on that third day. There is a registration fee obviously for that one, and the hotel does get booked up. So if anybody's interested in going, I think you should probably. How do we do it here? Do the trustees make their own reservations at the hotels, or I forget.
They can make the hotel reservations, and then we have a mechanism in place to do the expense
So
reimbursement.
you guys reimburse? Okay.
Right.
So if anybody is interested in going, it's the Sawgrass Marriott, and I would certainly encourage you to make your reservations if you can, because I know the hotel gets booked pretty quickly. Okay. And then just a couple other items that there's not really board action items, but I just did want you to be aware of them. Some recent, maybe attacks is a strong word, but on public entities, one of a criminal nature and one of a seemingly criminal nature. So there's been a recent spat of litigation against public agencies by a few law firms here in the state. Essentially for violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, of the ADA. So the claim is that the website is, it's not compliant with the ADA because many of the documents that are included on these public agency websites are not, and I don't know what the right terminology is, but they don't transfer or they're not
Compliant.
right. The software that's used by visually impaired or hearing impaired individuals on their laptops or on their devices doesn't recognize a lot of the documentation that's on these websites. So there's been some litigation, some fines or some settlements rather that have been reached as a result. But again, we don't have our own website, this pension fund, but obviously the Oldsmar does. So again, it's not anything for this board to do other than we're aware of it, and I think our recommendation to our trustees has been just to try and help our partner out as much as possible. So if we're requesting documentation from our vendors, so the GASB reports that have to be posted, the valuation report, things like that, that we asked for them in an already
ADA.
appropriate or ADA compliant format.
Good.
And then on the other side of the fence, the criminal side, and again, this is just dating me. I don't know if this is the right terminology anymore, but hackers, I guess, have been attacking public agencies and installing ransomware or malware to hold data captive, and then the public agency has to pay them in Bitcoin, if I'm understanding correctly, some fairly large sums of money. So again, we don't have this problem. Our data, the pension plan's data, is kind of stored in several different places, so I think we're okay. But again, it's just more informational for you to know. I'm sure the city is well aware of it and is taking its proper procedures or protocols to kind of prevent it. But there have been some fairly large ransoms paid out by some folks. Riviera Beach, city of Riviera Beach, which is northern Palm Beach County over on the East Coast. They paid close to $500,000. Key Biscayne, which is down south where I live in South Florida, they paid, I think, over $800,000 to get their data back. So there's some fairly sizable payments that are being made. Again, nothing for us to do, but just more informational than anything else.
Excuse me, Pedro?
Yeah.
I thought the authorities were advising these cities and other agencies not to pay the ransoms.
I don't know. They may be, and they may have advised that, and maybe they paid it anyway, or maybe they paid it before everything kind of, I don't know. You may be right. I just don't know. It would seem like the prudent thing to do would be not to pay it, but I guess if you need your data, they paid it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's been the general guidance to not pay it. I think the ones who did pay it, they had insurance coverage for it.
I know that Riviera Beach and Key Biscayne were covered by the insurance.
Right.
Their cyber policy did cover it. Just because it just so happens one of our other clients, he on an entirely different plan. I think he mentioned that they were the insurance broker for the Key Biscayne policy. So, but yes, that's right.
Yeah, we've been doing a substantial amount of training for email security and network security, trying to make our users more aware. Don't
Right.
click on that.
Right.
We have posters in the copy room and on the network, on the internet, it's everywhere, but.
No, I mean they've gotten really good at disguising these things to look authentic. So, but no good deed goes unpunished. So, that's it. That's really all I have. I mean, unless there's anything that you guys have questions on.
Have you seen any thing with the cancer bill? Any people are not being covered?
So, I think it's just kind of recent, but at least amongst my clients, the only instance that I've heard of, and it wasn't that it wasn't being covered, it was a situation, and this was discussed at a public meeting, so I can talk about it. Sarasota County, so the city of Sarasota and Sarasota County, many years ago, firefighters were transferred over to the county through an interlocal agreement. Their 175 plan, the city's 175 plans, same as ours, same as what happened here, stayed open. But it was closed, but it wasn't frozen. So the only issue there, it's not so much that nobody's going to cover it, it's that the city and the county are kind of pointing the finger at each other as the responsible agency or the responsible entity. So I think both have at least intimated that they're going to cover it and they're not going to fight it, but they're kind of looking at each other saying, well, it's your responsibility, and then, oh no, it's your responsibility. So, but that's a little bit of a unique situation because there's one employer, there was a former employer, now there's a current employer, but apparently something with the insurance, they stayed on, those employees that transferred stayed on the city's insurance, and that was their primary insurance. So there's just a little bit of a factual distinction probably than the majority of folks. But to my, from as far as I know, I think everybody's in agreement. I don't think anybody's really trying to avoid covering it.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. So, but I'm sure it's still too new, so I'm sure
Right.
there'll be something coming up at some point. But that's usually the way these laws kind of get interpreted and get a little bit more structure to them is when they're challenged in court and then the courts just issues opinions and that's how the law is interpreted going forward. So until we get a couple of those, it's kind of open for interpretation on some things, which is why you go to court and then the judge decides.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussions, comments? Okay. Next meeting is December 3rd. Is that at 2 o'clock still?
I believe so. I don't have it in front of me.
And I just need a motion to adjourn.
If I may real quick. On that date, obviously this is entirely up to the board, but I would not be able to make it on that particular date. Not that you need me to hold a meeting by any means, but if for any reason that was something that interested you all, having me at the December meeting, I wouldn't be able to make that particular date.
Okay.
Okay,
Just FYI.
okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.